2005 Acura TL. Now, I've been dreading to do this job for the longest because by the labor time it was supposed to take 11 hours, and well, this car has 220,000 miles on it. The transmission has gone out. 225,000. Yeah, transmission going out. It'll engage and then disengage. So yeah, it needed a transmission. Luckily, the guy's real patient and allowed me to. Well, he has other means of transportation, so this is one of 3 vehicles he got. So, and this car is immaculate, and by the way, on the inside it looks great. But making payments on getting the vehicle worked on, which is again fine with me. It's a little slow right now, which again is fine with me. So I mean, I got plenty of time to get this transmission out. Now this is a pain in the ass, but I guess it's not that bad though. I hate it only because of the subframe. Honestly, once you get the subframe removed, it's not that bad. It's just like any other Accord, obviously. And I'm pretty sure you can see that I've taken the fuse box, taking that out, and that's just laying off to the side, and I got everything zip tied up there, so I have some clearance. That and the main harness going to the transmission. So I do have an 80,000 mile transmission here. Came from Keystone. I don't put nothing cheap in there, so we're gonna do it right. We're gonna do it right, so we ain't gotta worry about it. I do not want to go back over this. I have I'm about to go purchase the new motor mount. Now I managed to do this without taking the rear motor mount out. Took the 4 bolts off the bottom and let that hang up. So that lower control arms weren't that bad. Remove the tie rods. The intermediate shaft wasn't that bad. You got a dowel here, and I recommend, of course, getting the steering wheel straight before you take this off, and use whiteout. I didn't use whiteout, but at the same time, you know, I knew what I was getting myself into. So, but this little tab here, ideally, you would think would stay in place, but it can be encouraged to move over and get the notch misplaced. But no big deal. You know, I could probably take some white out and go through it now, but it seemed like it stayed in place when I removed it. So while it's out, I am replacing the front motor mount, obviously because it broke. That joke was $150 at the parts store. But again, putting new seals on the transmission, front pump seal, definitely, and make sure it's done right, because you don't want to have to take this back out. So we get new front pump seal, axle seals, of course new fluid. It doesn't have a filter, it's internal. Other than that, I mean, it's just like any other vehicle, any other Accord. And of course I got the support here holding the motor, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna put some strain on that right mount there, but you know, they're common to break also, so that's not a big deal to replace. I'm in the process of just lowering it. I am using my Harbor Freight transmission jack, and I use it for multiple jobs. Works perfect. I didn't use a strap, and I just have a strap that, you know, I use to hold down my kayak and stuff, so not a big deal. And again, it wasn't that bad doing this. It's just the subframe. Luckily the subframe is aluminum for the most part, like a cast aluminum. It just sucks. I just hate doing this. So I'm partially venting. I'm gonna set the camera up, and I'm gonna lower this down, and we can kind of get a visual of that. I did take the left transmission mount out. It's nothing but 2 bolts, 2 14mm, and I got a little more clearance. I can move the transmission around and just simply lower it. had to take that vacuum line that went to the rear mount out. I left that hanging in there. And when I get it lowered, normally what I do with these cars, since I got on jack stands, just go from the past the driver's side. Pull it out. Simply just roll it back. Alright. I did take the, let me take these gloves off. I did take the cooler off, of course, to get a little more room to access this bolt right here. Those were 17mm bolts and the 14 on the bottom. Like I said, once you get the subframe out, it's not bad, just like any other transmission. Really not a pain in the ass or anything. Now I wonder if this, I don't know if this has been replaced before or not, but I don't remember seeing like writing like that from the factory. Who knows? I might be wrong though. Let me see if the torque converter got any writing on it. No. But the transmission, if this is the original one, you have to probably look at the tag. See, we got the VIN number on it. If it matches. I'm scared to hit that button, but let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 580. 580, yeah, it's the same one. Okay. Yeah, well, this is the original transmission. Good deal. Other than that, what else? I don't know if anybody else put a ribbon on this because I hit my head on it like a couple times, but I only had a couple issues getting the subframe out, and that was, what was it? It was actually the exhaust bolts were the problem, and that was in the process of getting access to the subframe bolt, but there was nothing that heat or penetrating oil didn't take care of. It was just one bolt that broke on the exhaust system. Not a big deal. It happens. It'll be fine with 2 bolts actually holding the exhaust into place over 2 out of 3, so it'll work perfectly fine. I did take the line off from the top of the power steering hose. You know, I seen somebody else do that on YouTube. It was a pretty good idea. Nothing major. I tried to do as much investigating as I could, and when it came to pulling this transmission out, because I'm like, do I go from the bottom? Do I pull the whole motor out? But honestly, if you pull the whole motor out, you're going to be doing just about the same amount of work anyway, because you're going to have to take the fluid, out. You're going to have to, of course, the exhaust still has to come out. But I would say it probably might be easier though, honestly, in hindsight, because honestly, the main harness could come out. You could just take, yeah, you could have probably just disconnected the main harness here in the back. There's a connector in the back there. You can simply just take off and just remove it. Just started the car up, so I got everything back together. Oh shit, I'm screwing up. I got everything back together. All I gotta do is just get the cover back on there, just some cosmetic stuff, nothing big. I'm gonna tighten the battery down, just topping the coolant level. And I have not hopped under the car to look and see if there's any type of leak from that front pump seal, which that's what scares the shit out of me. That will determine if I have to go back under the car and take transmission out or not. But I put a new front pump seal in here, so I did my best. I put sealing around the outer edges of it to hold it in place, because it didn't have that much of a fit, even though it had the right part number. I don't care, man. I know some people don't like to glue stuff, but I am definitely going to glue that, put some gray glue on there to keep that in place, because they can run out. I don't know if anybody ever had that happen before. So I'm going to let it do its thing here. We're going to both take a look under here together. No leaks. I'm gonna take some brake cleaner and go under there once I get done and test driven. I just want to make sure the transmission works, and then I'll do some cleaning when I get done with it. Other than that, like I said, this wasn't a hard job. The intermediate shaft is very accessible inside the car, so you don't have to go around here to pull the intermediate shaft or separate it from the rack and pinion. There's a 10mm bolt in there. The only things that I wish I would have done was just mark the orientation of the intermediate shaft when it came with the rack and pinion, but it's not a big deal because, again, it's very accessible. If the wheel's not perfectly straight when going in a straight line, simply just take the 10mm bolt, remove that pinch bolt, and just make up for the difference. Make up just alter for compensation. So it's not a big deal. The only thing I did forget was the line in the front for the return for the power steering, but it leaked some of the fluid out before I start pouring in there. I poured a little bit of power steering fluid in there and it leaked out, so I saw that when I came back in the garage and just tightened that hose up. So that's the only thing I forgot, despite it being a fairly large job. Again, this job takes 11 hours. I knocked this out within 9 hours. It took me, I would say, 4 hours total to get the subframe down, get some of the bolts around from the housing and the transmission removed. And I picked at it. So this was a course of 2 days I got this knocked out. So I started yesterday, got the subframe out, got the engine supported, start pulling the transmission out today, and transferred any parts that I needed, mounts, put new mounts on the subframe, etc. on the new transmission, jacked it up, got it in there. Not a big deal. One thing I didn't show was when I got the, of course I got the subframe in there. I didn't want to make this video like long and drawn out, but just to give you my pointers. But I did use my transmission jack to roll the subframe in position, jack it up, and get everything in place. So it wasn't bad at all. Honestly, wasn't bad. I would say just start all the bolts by hand, you'll be perfectly fine. Everything was accessible with the electric impact gun and the driver. So some bolts were a little harder than others, 17mm. So that's why I was wondering if the transmission came out. That's why I had the thought that it did. But obviously the transmission didn't. And maybe it's just a factory thing or just the age thing. Some of those 17mm bolts were very difficult coming out. Other than that, the transmission looked really good. Again, this has 80,000 miles on it. I don't put nothing cheap in here. This transmission's fairly expensive, just a little under $2,000. And everything comes with a 6-month warranty. I did get it from Keystone. Like I get everything from. Never got a bad part from there. They offer a variety of warranties, so they test everything. So I've been using them for years. Okay, for years. But anything I do put in the car has very low mileage. Again, this has 80,000. Engines, if I can get them below 100,000, they're going to get an engine below 100,000. I'm not putting anything over 100,000 unless it's absolutely necessary. But again, they test everything. They stick to their guns with the warranty, and everything's fine. But I digress. As far as so once we got the subframe up, everything went back in place like normal. You do have two 14mm bolts on the frame here that I would recommend just taking those two 14mm bolts off the side. Just loosen them up so at least they'll give you some guidance when putting back the subframe. So other than that, I'm going to take this on a test drive. I guess if anybody have any questions as far as the removal and installation, hit me up in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to help you out as far as some pointers, but it's pretty much cut and dry. Remove the wheels, remove the CV axle nuts, remove the lower control arm bolt, the nut, remove the tie rods, remove the subframe bolts, remove the pinch bolt for the intermediate shaft, remove the power steering pressure line. The transmission should be supported because it has like this metal stopper at the top of it. So when you drop the subframe, it can support itself. Just make sure it has that in place. So that'll rest on the outer housing of the engine mount, that transmission support. So it can support itself with the subframe move. You're definitely going to need a engine support like I utilized. That's just a Harbor Freight one. It served its purpose. Hasn't killed me yet. Let me see here. And just pretty much the 10mm bolts that go around torque converter, took those out. So just to go over the tools you need, a 17mm, 19mm, I think it should be a 36mm for the axle nut. A ball joint removal tool so you don't damage the actual boot. So we got 10, 12, 14, 17, 19, and it's the barriers extensions, man, and that's it. And you're definitely going to need some something that's going to help you lift this subframe up and the transmission, like I use my transmission jack. So other than that, like I said, hit me in the comments if you have any questions. But this car is, how old is this car? It's 2020 now. It's 2005, so it's like 15 years old. So but good luck, that's all I can tell you. But hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, have that reassurance of my work. See you on the next one.